Da-da-da. Hey, it says we're live. It's been a while since I've done this. Get the microphone up here a little bit. So if you can hear me, say something. I don't see anybody's there. So I'm going to drop something in the chat here real quick. Yeah, I see somebody has joined. If you can hear me, like leave a comment or something, just let me know because like I said, it's been a while since I went live, especially from the desktop. And so I want to make sure that things are getting through. Hey, thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining too. So part of why I wanted to do this, hey Randall, hey, thanks for joining, man. Part of why I wanted to do this is just to sort of make sure that the whole system still works to go live from here, like sort of in my little studio. But the other thing is we're coming up on 5,000 subscribers, and I got a few sponsors that are they've donated some stuff to give away, so we're going to have a hopefully a fun event. But I just wanted to make sure that we did this at least once before the end of the month, and honestly, I'd like to do this at least once a month, and so I just thought it'd be a good idea to just start off with some open Q&A if anybody has any. I got a couple that have been submitted through the community tab, but we can talk about anything we want. So let's see. I see. Was it Feather and Randall? Where you guys been fishing? You bet you guys been getting out at all right now? Do-do. Kind of wish we could do these things like two-way. You know what I mean? Jim, hey, thanks for joining. North Florida. Is that like Pensacola area, or like Jacksonville or somewhere else? My last sort of big trip before the whole world shut down in 2020. It wasn't a big trip, but it was. I was down to Pensacola, and I went down there. I had a photo shoot with a client at the time, and took my mom with me. We had a good time. It was a blast. So I love Pensacola. Can't wait to get back. Right between the two, Live Oak. Okay, cool. Getting ready to head out to Michigan. Has just had all the ice come off. Okay, so you're in Michigan. Yeah. And honestly, you didn't have a lot, unless you're like in the UP. I don't think you had a lot of good ice anyway. So I'm not an ice fishing guy, but it's still, when the water's in the 30s, and even when there's no ice, it's hard to catch fish consistently. Randall says inshore saltwater here in North Carolina. Ooh, last month down in Tampa. Yeah, that could be fun. What? Ice was horrible. Yeah, I saw some videos of guys fishing like 2 and 3 inch ice, and I'm like, "There's no way, there's no way you would catch me doing that." Yeah, so I got to tell you, when I was looking back at the live streams, I think the only sort of official live stream that I've done for this channel in this format was when I had 500 subscribers, and that didn't go real well. Just I didn't have a great connection, so I've updated the connection here. New Cat 8 cable. If you're familiar with that, it's supposed to, and actually it tests like I'm getting megabit speed, so that's awesome. But just been working on so many other things that I wasn't sure what the ideas were. How many people wanted to get together and chat and ask questions, and so we can get into certain topics on a regular basis. But I'll get into the first one that I have written down here. I only have usernames. I don't actually have the user in front of me. I don't think I can get any. Nope. So the username is dirtier2. So I apologize if you have another name attached to the account. But it's just the way it shows up in the comments. Basically, the question was the proper way to spool a BFS reel, and specifically the Aldebaran. Now, so I'm going to give 3 answers here. Um, it's sort of the standard line on the proper way to spool a bait caster in general is you use some sort of backing tape like electrical tape, or some spools of braid actually come with little backing tape. So you put a layer of that down, and then you use an arbor knot, and then then you just spool it normally. And the idea is there's braid will spin sometimes, and because it doesn't have any stretch, so you're trying that tape gives it something to grip to. So that's sort of like the most common thing. I mean, some guys, and there's probably some that still do, they actually ran like a backing of monofilament or fluorocarbon, and then they did like an FG knot or something and attached the braid to the backing and then spooled the braid on. But when you're talking bait finesse, like we're only talking usually 40 or 50 yards, most of us, you can fit, you know, up to 100 yards of some of the different lines on there, but it doesn't really leave you a lot of room to put backing and stuff on there. And then the other side of it is if you're using like mono and even fluoro to some extent as a backing, it has some stretch. And so it can just gradually, as it gets pulled, it can tighten more and more, and it can actually crush your spool. And I've seen more cases of spools being crushed by wrapping mono too tight than by doing the number three technique that I'm going to tell you. So that's number one. Use an arbor knot, do it sort of old school, put some backing tape on it. Now, Jimmy from RAR Fishing, he has a really good video where he shows you how to spool a bait finesse spool. It works very well. I've used it on a couple of them. I think the NACO flight feather, I used it for that. I was struggling to get it done the way I would normally do it. And so I used Jimmy's technique. And it's basically like you tie, think it's sort of like an arbor knot, but it's more of a slip knot. And so you tie a big loop and then you run it through. Well, watch the video. Go to RAR Fishing and basically how to spool a bait caster. But the gist is then you put like three different loops, three different wraps, like figure eight wraps onto the spool, and then that locks it in place. You can stretch the knot down and you're good to go. That works very well, honestly. But what I do, and the Aldebaran specifically, some of the Shimano spools, and the Aldebaran is one of them. They've got that little port in there, and I haven't been able to find the translation from Japanese, but there's a lot of us that believe that that little hole in there is specifically to put your line through there to tie it off. Now, here's the thing: when you do that, if you get spooled, you get to the end, that knot's not going to hold, right? It's probably going to break right off. So the one or two times that I've been in this situation with bait finesse where I'm like, I think I'm going to get spooled. Basically, I started tightening down the drag, and because I would much rather, break off near the fish than to have 50 yards of line out in the water. So, um, I have done that with almost every rod. Now, or with every reel. There's a couple that I've done a traditional arbor spool, and you just fish it down and around, and braid, actually you can put a little bit of a bend in it, and so it does work its way around. And then I just tie the arbor knot and spool it up, and I've had no issues that way either. So I think a lot of people make more of a deal with trying to spool braid onto a bait caster than it really deserves. What you don't want to do is you don't want to spool it on there super tight. And also, this is one of the reasons why some reels they tell you don't use mono, because if you do, even if you spool the mono loose, as you keep using it, it will keep stretching, and it will deform your spool. So, um, that's it. So let me see. I do have a question. Let me catch up here. Hopefully that helps. Question would be: how big of a difference is there between a Tatula 80 with a Gomexa spool compared to the new Daiwa BFS releases? Um, so far, I've only used the Tatula with the Gomexis on sort of a power BFS situation, throwing some crankbaits, throwing some tubes for smallmouth. I and honestly, it feels just like a standard BFS reel. So I haven't pushed it down to that lower end. The thing is, it's like the new Pixie for sure. It should be able to get down around 1 gram. But it's a six bearing reel, and it doesn't have a drag clicker, so there's just some negatives for it for me. And again, one of my favorite reels right now is a Daiwa. So my latest video, Nobody has said it, but I'm sure there's people thinking about it. Like, well, he's just a Shimano fanboy or bashing Daiwa, and that's not the case. Um, so there's a chance that the Tatula BF70, because it's very similar to the Salamandora, there's a chance that it might perform a little bit better, but I don't recall anybody really talking about the Salamandora being a world beater down in that 1 gram range either. I bought both of them to be more of like a standard and a power BFS range. I've got plenty of reels that go down sub 2 grams, and so I haven't tested them yet. Now the Salamandora I will be testing this month to see how low it can go, and maybe if I have time, I have a series that I'm starting to work on, uh, and so we'll see how low it can get. But it's not one of the ones that's noted and commonly talked about being great down below 2 grams. So initial feelings on the Tatula 80 with the Gomexas, I really like it. But again, I bought it for specific uses. I wanted a slower gear ratio, something to do some cranking, and but it's been casting great, and it's just so smooth. It is super smooth, and so I do really like that about it. Okay, so Randall, next question. I'm struggling to find a 6'9" or less BFS rod for my SLX. It's going to be inshore kayak and don't want it long or expensive. Sorinoya rods in general have a really good following. I haven't tried them yet. Here's the thing: like there are so many more bait finesse rods than um, there are reels, and it's not possible unless you have unlimited budget. So I've had to pick and choose I, where I'm spending the money. Surinoya has a really good reputation, and I can't think of a single Surinoya rod that I've heard people say, oh, it's a crap rod. The Dragon 2, definitely fantastic. So um, Surinoya is fine. I wouldn't worry about that. Um, the other rod that it's kind of baffling me. Now this is at least a fast. It might be borderline extra fast. That Handing Miracle Bass that I picked up. If that works in your range, even if they're not on sale now, they're like $70. They're a lot more sensitive than I thought they would be. I don't know how they perform under a heavy load with a fish yet, because I haven't put anything decent on them. But overall, I've been kind of pleased with how those are working out for $70. You can get them from Amazon. Uh, Jacob says, I just got an NRX Plus inch. Oh, nice. Um, yeah, NRX Plus ought to be fantastic. The NRX Plus is one of the 2 rods that eventually I need to try just to see how they stack up to the Kistler rods that Trey developed, with my input, because so far I haven't come across anything that stacks up to them, and the NRX Plus is definitely one that I'm like, one of these days we're going to check that out. So, okay, same question about the Daiwas. Sorinoya Dragon, yep, okay. NRX would be awesome. Uh, Hey, another Aaron. Great name. Obviously, you got to be a wonderful dude, So howdy from Australia. So it's what, somewhere around 8, 9 in the morning there for you. So thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning. Um, can I share a link for the handing rod? Well, let's see. That's a good test. Thank you. I gotta. Hopefully, you can still see me here because I got to go to a different page to grab the link real quick. But do 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 do. I didn't expect that question, so sorry I didn't have this ready to roll, but I'm almost there. Almost there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stop it. I love when computers try to guess what you're doing and they're like, "Here, can I do this for you?" I'm like, "No, that's not what I want." Here we go. Copy that. Let's see. No, don't worry about it. That was great. Something I'll make sure I have ready for next time. Again, that's part of why I wanted to do this kind of stuff. Bill, what did I not like about the Major Craft Benkei? Um, so like I sort of went back and forth with it. There were times when I kind of felt like um, it had decent sensitivity, but there was other times I couldn't feel anything that was going on, and honestly, it felt very stiff for its rating, and it was one of the first BFS rods that I had, but the Major Craft Fine Tail Glass was also one of the first ones I have, and I love it. I still fish that. I was just out with it the other day. Um, I I kind of felt that it was just a little too stiff for its rating for my taste. And again, it's no secret that I really like moderate rods. But I just the Benkei, I joked around that maybe it was because the Alphas Air was on it for so long, but even when I threw other reels on it, it didn't connect with it. It always felt like I was kind of fighting it the whole time, and it was a lot more effort to cast it, and it just never really I never seemed to connect with it. So it just wasn't a good fit with me. But it's a good rod if if it's the kind of thing that you like. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see somebody else here says they just picked up the Handing Ultralight. Yeah, so that's the Handing Magic L was one that I'm familiar with. A local YouTuber, Yankee Lipper, that I've been fishing with a couple times. He has those, really likes them, and so when the Handing, I was looking for a budget power BFS rod, and so when that Handing Miracle Bass showed up, I'm like, oh, I'll give that a try because Scott's rods look nice, and he likes them a lot, and so that's why I tried that up. New trout rod, the Kingdom Stream King. Yeah, I think the next rod that I pick up is so I have a trip down to the Smoky Mountains in May, and it's for family stuff, but I'm going to get a couple fishing trips in. So I'm probably going to pick up this Soranoia Intruder as a travel rod. The only real travel rod that I have right now is the Limmer and Wind Shadow, and it's just not going to be able to do what I'm hoping to get into down there with trout and smallmouth. So that's probably the next one I'll pick up. But honestly, I and my wife knows because she sees them all the time. I probably have 16 or 17 rods in the garage right now. So there will be a video coming in the next month, probably, of like, hey, here's my current setup. And just like last year, a handful of those are probably not going to make the cut through the summer. And I'll be starting to filter some of them out. But so, but yeah, Kingdom is one that I've always looked at their rods, and I've never pulled the trigger on one of them. It's just like something else always seems to win out. So okay, did I miss anything else up here? Okay, so hey, I just want to say, and so thanks for all of you who've jumped on here. So when we do the live stream, I think it's going to be May 20 or it's going to be March 29th. This is going to be the 5,000 subscriber sort of celebration giveaway. Uh, I've got a ton of stuff lined up. We've got t-shirts, we've got hats, I got all kinds of other little swag. Uh, we've got gift certificates. I've got a custom lure to give away. I only reached out to four different companies that I'm personally connected with, uh, and I just respect what they're doing. And all four of them are like, absolutely, we're in. So and they all just offered up various different things. So that's going to be fun. Think I've got a couple stickers that I've created that we'll be giving those away as well. I'll be giving away a custom shirt. Maybe eventually I'll get this one off. I have one of them on right now, but so we're doing all kinds of giveaways. In fact, I have more stuff than what we're going to be able to give away. I guarantee it. So we're just going to, every time the conversation sort of slows down like this, we're like, okay, let's do another giveaway. And I still want people to chat and interact, but we've got so much stuff to give away. So I think that's going to happen on March 29th. We'll hit 5,000 subscribers well before that. But it's just I have some church things going on the week before that, and then I don't want to do it next week. Next week will be close. We might not be at 5,000 next week, but we'll see. So, um, high star rods. Yeah, I almost tried a high star rod at the 11/11 sale, and then they played um, they played some games with the pricing, and it just sort of it bothered me a little bit. So uh, I think it was the assassin, the high star assassin was the one I was looking at. But yeah, it's um, high star makes good products. There, no doubt about it. Any info on the Kistler BFS or new info? Well, so I think I announced that there's a 2X model coming out. Tomorrow's video is kind of like the very quick unboxing, and then I took it out to do some smallmouth fishing, and it's late winter, but we had a little bit of a warming trend, and I'll just, since you're on the live stream, I caught the largest smallmouth that I've caught in the last 2 years on that new 2X model, and honestly, I was sort of shocked when I got home and sort of measured on the rod. I sort of laid it down because I didn't have a bump board with me. I was, it was a 2.5 mile hike into the spot. Um, but when I measured it when I got home, like that thing was almost 18 and a half, maybe 18 and 3/4 inches. And it just, the rod handled it so well. And so I'm absolutely floored by it. But again, I 100% understand that these are not in a lot of people's budget. But when a company like Kistler reaches out to somebody like me and says, "Hey, would you help us develop a line of rods?" And then they, turn around, 4 months later, like, "Hey, can we just put your name on all of them?" Like, I'm not going to say no, right? But I'm still doing, the budget gear stuff as well. I still use it. I still fish with it, but I am getting a little spoiled by these Kistler rods. I'll say that for sure. And if Trey, if you're happen to be watching, I think the new reels look great too. They're not BFS reels, but the new line of reels came out, different colors, and it's just been such a joy to work with the Kistler organization over the last year. So, okay, let's see. Okay, now I did have another question come up, and this is from Alex, and he posted this in the community page when I announced that we were going to do this. And it was actually interesting to hear somebody ask this because I've thought about making occasional content on this, and I don't know how it will fit with the channel, but his question was like he'd be interested in tips in retirement, like how do you plan for that? Because obviously I was 48 when I walked away from my corporate job, and he says he wants to sort of retire early-ish as well and do a lot of fishing and camping. So it's in a way it's easy to get there, but it's also very hard, right? Because the principles that you need to follow are very basic. But we live in a society where, at least in the United States, I know we have people on from all over the world right now, it looks like, but at least in the United States, like the data shows like 4 out of 5 people, like if they had $1,000 or $1,500 expense crop up unexpectedly, like they'd panic, like they don't have the money to cover it. um and so when you're thinking like, okay, well, that's the normal in the United States, and then you're trying to put away 7 figures plus so that you can quit working early, and be comfortable that I'm still earning money. I'm still going to earn money, but I don't have to go to work on somebody else's time schedule, right? And that's the freedom that I'm looking for. The the two main people that helped me get from like, okay, we were pretty smart with what we were doing, but there was no way I was going to retire even at 55, to in 7 years to be like, hey, like it's 48 and I think I can actually do this. One is a guy named Dave Ramsey, and he's a little rednecky, and he's a little obnoxious at times, but his principles do work, especially to get you out of debt, right? Especially to get you to the point where you can invest a lot more money. And then the other person that I spent a lot of time and like their perception really influenced my head is a guy named Pete Ardeni, and he goes by Mr. Money Mustache. And honestly, I haven't looked at his site in 3 or 4 years probably, so I don't even know if he's still active. But he retired when he was like 30 or 31, and the way he did that was is he put away like 60 or 70% of his income. Um, and that sounds absolutely insane, but if you follow some of the things that Dave Ramsey talks about to sort of get out of debt and to get into good position, you'd be surprised how much money you can put away. If you add up how much you're spending on your mortgage, your car payments, student loans, if you had them, on eating out, on a lot of other things, you might be surprised to find that well over 50% of your take home pay could be invested if you wanted to. And that's what happened for us. We actually got to the point where we were putting 65 to 70% away for the last several years I was working. So those are the two people that I recommend. It requires a little bit of sacrifice, but we still went on vacations, right? But it- we didn't eat out a lot. We still don't. I traveled extensively for 15 years of my career. And so the last thing I wanted to do when I got home, after being away for 2 or 3 weeks, was to go out and eat. And so I just learned to cook, so we don't eat out a ton. And so that was one thing. And then honestly, we didn't have kids, and that probably helped. But um, those are just a couple tips. Gekabejan in the giveaway. Well, you know what I probably will be doing though is you mentioned that. So that's right around the time I was going to give away a Solo King Acura. So we're probably going to give away the Acura on that live stream as well. Um, doo- doo. Thanks. So you're looking at the plume, 1/16th bullet weight with a 3-inch Helgramite. You may want to weigh that because I think the plume is rated up to like up to 6 grams, if I remember correctly. Um, and it's not going to go much above that from the use that I've had. And so you might be pushing 7+ grams once you get the hook and everything in place there. So make sure you weigh that before you pull that trigger, man. To purchase Corrado BFS, look for a budget BFS trail road. Ooh, AG Venom. So um, I'm not the only one that's had a few issues with the Ace Hawk Venom. It is a very delicate rod. I loved it. I thought it performed great, but I had three of them, and two of them broke within probably 5 outings. And so that's maybe the downside. And here's the thing: is if you watch some of my videos, like I'm not an aggressive caster, so I that's my hang up on the Ace Hawk Venom. I think, I mean, the Mavlos Delicacy, it's a budget rod. It's maybe a step below that that Ace Hawk Venom, but I really enjoyed fishing it. I thought it was fantastic. What other trout rods do I take out? Um, Man, I'm starting to think like most. I've been taking the plume out for trout a couple times. It's pretty decent. Dragon 2, that sounds like a good recommendation. Oh, another Aaron, man, that's awesome. Uh, yeah, and honestly, I love the Limerence Wind Shadow. It's a little glass flick rod. I just had that out for my birthday trout video, and I forget how fun it is. It really is a good rod. And it's held up. I mean, it's probably been on maybe 20, 25 fishing trips now, and probably, I don't know, maybe 5 times I've completely broken it down, put it back in its case, and then set it back up. The downside is like you're going to start getting into fish over 18 inches with trout. The Limerence, I mean, I've put fish about that size on it, but man, it was a question mark whether it was going to end well or not. So, but it's a great rod. It's just so much fun. But yeah, I think that Dragon 2 is a good recommendation. Um, I'm not real familiar with the intruder specs right now, uh, but the intruder is rated a little bit higher. I think I don't think it goes down as low as the Ace Hawk did. Um, Trying to think of another rod that's rated way down below 1 gram like that. That's relatively inexpensive. Yeah, there's not another one coming to my mind right now, and I might be forgetting about something. Cool. Hey, and here's the other thing. So if you're going to use the Corrado um, with that, the Corrado really doesn't cast much down below 2 grams anyway. So don't necessarily worry about getting a rod that can go that low. I was just sort of reading back through that. So if the Corrado is the reel that you're going to use, Miles, um, just find something that's rated down to like 1.5 or 2 grams, and then and up from there, because the Corrado really isn't going to be able to leverage that lighter rod anyway. I'm looking for a rod too, thinking about the plume. Yeah, did somebody else just say that, or was that you up there before, Jim? Yeah. So, oh, and did somebody ask about the Conquest earlier? Did I miss that one? Let me go back up here. Yeah, Aaron Bowie, way back up there. What are your thoughts on the Calcutta Conquest BFS? Um, I still think that it's the most well built and maybe one of the most fun reels to fish that I've ever owned. And I, when the day comes where I have a better engineered, better feeling, more enjoyable piece of equipment, I'll be absolutely thrilled. Uh, what I will say is that on lightweight performance, I find myself grabbing the Gecko Bejan before I grab the Conquest. The Conquest started out as a trout reel for me, and it's turned into a sort of an all around bait finesse reel, and I really love catching bass with it. But the Gecko Bejan has just turned into this amazing lightweight phenom, and I haven't modified it. I've gradually, it, once you dial that air braking system in, Daiwa really has something there, and the Gecko Bejan can cast down to about 3/4 of a gram pretty easily. I've caught trout on flies like woolly buggers using that Gecko Bejan, and so here's the thing. I have a video. I filmed this last fall with Jimmy from RAR Fishing, and it was a horrible day of fishing. Like waters were at like 70-year lows. We're on a trout stream. I mean, it was just a recipe for disaster, right? Um, but I did catch my first fall fish. But this is where I figured it out about the Gecko Bejan, is that if you really work at it and you dial it in to be able to cast like 0.5 gram, 3/4 gram lures, and you're getting 20, 25, 30 feet distance out of them at that, but you're getting it repeatably and it's not blowing up and you're not having any problems. Well, then you can pop on a 4.5 gram lure and just bomb the heck out of it. Like it's incredible that just you don't have to change the brakes on it. And again, this is if you're using a nice smooth finesse casting. I don't do a two-handed whip and try to put all kinds of extra effort into it. But it's something that I've started playing around with other reels now. Like if I spend the time to really optimize it for the lightest weight it can throw, how well do they throw, standard weights after that? And it seems to be that anything with an active braking system, like like the Shimano's or the or the Daiwas. I haven't tried it with the Silver Creek yet, I don't think, but they seem to perform very well in those situations. Anything that has a what they call a static, which isn't really static, right? They, because you still get the different eddy currents based on the speed that the spool is moving, but the magnets don't move, right? Magnet and the inductor, everything is in a fixed position, so they're in a static position. So things that have like a Magtrex style, in the magnet just moves in and out. Those seem to be more prone to needing adjustment, at least on my tweaking. Once I figured that out about the gecko I was sort of like, man, this thing is just incredible. And when you're fishing for trout specifically, at least for me, sometimes you're wanting to throw something ultra light, and then sometimes you're wanting to throw on a 5 gram, because you see either a big fish, or it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to throw something completely different. And if you don't have to change any settings, it's incredible. So okay, so I caught up with that. So let me get back down here. Uh, uh, if I missed anything, just throw them back in there, or let me know. Awesome reels. I love my Calcutta 50s. Yeah. So Jim, again, if you're thinking about Texas rigging a 3-inch Nico Helgramite with a 1/16 bullet weight, I was trying to see if I had a Nico Helgramite over there, but 1/16 is already going to be like 1.8 grams. Um, I bet you that Nico Helgramite is at least 4 grams, because that's a pretty good, pretty dense plastic, and I think you're going to be pushing the limits on the plume, and so um, even if it handles it, you're going to lose a lot of accuracy with that. Okay, help me get into BFS. Oh, I'm sorry, I got you. You got two budget setups already. Oh man, now you're going down the rabbit hole. Um, Original Calcutta 50s. Yeah, those would be awesome. Cool. Yeah, it's not like I need more reels. I don't even know how many I own right now. But the Calcutta 50 is one that I keep my eye out for. And like one of these days I'll find one locally at a, garage sale or a pawn shop, or see something on Facebook Marketplace. I I remember as a kid, that Calcutta was sort of like the, if a guy was, you know, getting into a tournament, or he showed up on the dock or the bank with a Calcutta, like, oh man, he's rich. That was how I grew up. That was sort of the top line reel back then. So okay, where are we at? 834. Yeah, mine are gold. Yeah, they're almost worth as much as gold too, probably, if you sell them to the right people. Still rocking all 10 of my Calcuttas. That's awesome. I joked around on the I can't. It might have been like the top five BFS reels video that I did in the fall. That all the money that I've spent on BFS reels, if I just would have started buying the Calcutta Conquest BFS, I could have had 8 of those, and I would have spent less. And so they're, but I enjoy trying out the different products for the most part. It's but for, let's see, the budget stuff, it performs, right. You're going to catch fish with it. The fish don't care necessarily. There's less than 1% of the time that the budget reel is going to make or break whether or not you land that fish. But from an angler's perspective, you feel the difference, right. And so for most of the things that are in the higher prices, you should get better performance. You should feel the difference, and that was part of the issue I have with some of Daiwa's releases here lately, is that it seems like they're charging more, putting a new name on something, but it was sold for 100 or 150 less for the last year, 2, 4 years, and so what's where's the premium experience? What's the added value that you're getting out of it? And um, so anyway, I'm 62. When I was a kid, the Mitchell 300. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate that. Yeah, honestly, that's part of why I make the videos I do, and that's part of why I try to be. I don't like to slam companies. In fact, that was the first time I said anything about Cast King, I think, in over a year, because I've just chosen not to talk about them. Like, I'm not gonna badmouth them, but it's just Daiwa sort of did something very similar to them, and that's the only reason it came up. Um, but if I try something and it's not fantastic, I'm going to let you know. Um, and I think that's obvious with the channel. I and the other side of it is in fact, there's been a few things I've forgotten to do final reviews on before I sold them off, because I was still sort of like mixed on, but they've never come up, so they weren't really big, demand items. But like even like the Corrado BFS, I still haven't done my long term review on it, and I've owned it a year, almost a year and a half, because like I still need to take time and test it some different ways. It got off to a bad start with me, but I fish it a lot now. So it's not that I don't like it, I don't use them. I mean, it's often on the kayak in the summertime when I'm running 4 or 5 real, combos. But I need to sit down with it and really test its performance levels with the right line. And that's what started me off with it. I actually was on the box. I still have so right on the side of the box somewhere. So it talks about, I don't know if the camera will focus there or not. So see right there, see it even says Power Pro, right? And so I went out and bought Power Pro for this reel. Um, and for bait finesse, I think Power Pro sucks. It is so stiff. It is and the dye sort of flakes off of it, and so it really gunks up the reel. And I was extremely disappointed with Power Pro, and I think that influenced me a little bit with that reel. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to use it that much. But once I threw J braid on it, and then here real soon before I take it out again, I'll be throwing on the new Sunline, and then I'll do a proper review of it, probably like in April or May. Okay, watching your channel from. Hey, thanks MKR, appreciate it. Yeah, on the Shimano reels needing some time to work in. I actually, it's kind of funny to think about this, but and actually, I'll say the conquest right off the bat. Like I just set the brakes to, I think it was 4 or somewhere around 40%. Set the tension the way I wanted, and that reel has almost been flawless since. I've had one bad blow up on it where I was fishing the Shenandoah with Ed Lindsay from the one of the like the ultralight bait finesse or ultralight bait casters for him, I think. So we were fishing the Shenandoah, and I was just talking to him, and I made a long cast, and I was just letting a swim bait sink, paddle tail swim bait, and I felt something hit it, and I set the hook, and I never clicked the reel shut. And man, that was a epic bird's nest. That's really been the only problem I've had with it. From day one, it's been absolutely smooth as silk and phenomenal. But the Aldebaran, I um, I almost I almost gave up on it. It is so finicky to adjust compared to a lot of other reels, but once you get it dialed in, performance is fantastic. And it's just that brake dial is like I'm like trying to put my thumbnail on it just to try to move it. That's a little bit of a bad part of the design on that. Um, Varivis, yeah, I've used Varivis too. The Varivis that I like is like 30 bucks a spool, and I think it's only like a 75-yard spool. And so when I started looking into the testing on especially um, um, lighter diameter lines, um, Sunline showed was they consistently perform up near the top, and I did a blog post on it. I don't remember what the other one is, but I'm going to try the other one next. Uh, so that's why I went that way, because I've had great success with J braid, but J braid is like middle of the pack to bottom, in a lot of the like the line laboratory testing. I like Verivis, but when I'm spooling 16, 18 reels twice a year, it gets really expensive because I'm only getting usually one reel per 30 bucks. And so that's where, like, if Veritas would make a 150-yard or a 300-yard spool, it would really help me out. But so that's part of what holds me back against them. Now, if they want to sponsor the channel, and 100%, I'm all in. Let's see. Hey, drink wet poop. How you doing, man? Appreciate your support of the channel. Japanese PE lines. I've used everything from zero point 0.2 to like zero point 0.6. And I don't think I don't have any over there. Um, I'm pretty sure that the sun all the sunline I picked up was zero point 0.6 as well. Verivis Bass Braid. I don't think I've heard about that one. Have you used the Solo King Acura? Yeah, 100% Justin. The Solo King Acura. Um, I know a lot of people say look for the short shaft versus the long shaft. It is a performance improvement. Sometimes it's called the Acura Pro, but the Solo King Acura is such a great value right now that it's hard for me not to recommend it. Um, but if you're watching 5 or 10 minutes ago, I'm like, but there is a performance difference, right? It's like it gets you 80% of the way there, and all of the extra hundreds of dollars that you can spend over that is only going to get you incrementally better. Doo, doo. Nice little chat there. Yeah, Brew Tank. I won't be one of the ones to try the Pro Super Slick. I'm sorry. It was such a bad experience on the other stuff. Like fool me once. Uh, yeah, mono. The only mono. So I do the when I the rare occasion that I run mono. So I use a master. Um, Primarily, I've been keeping it on the Dark Wolf Ultra because I'm kind of thinking that Dark Wolf Ultra and the Lemmer and Wind Shadow become sort of like the truck rod, and I don't even want to deal with tying on leaders and stuff when I'm just driving across a little creek and I want to jump out and see if I can catch any fish out of it. But that's the mono that I've been using. It's a little bit lower stretch, and but it does have a little bit more memory to it, and it's a different feel. Takes a little bit more touch to not backlash and stuff like that. But and that's one thing I will say is these modern bait casters in general, but even the bait finesse ones, the braking systems are so good, and the modern braided lines are so good that they're a lot easier to use than even bait casters from 10 or 15 years ago, right? And so like we're living in a really good time. Not to mention like seems like every week there's a new bait finesse reel coming out. So yeah, so far on the Sunline, I don't have any real issues. I have noticed that the knot strength seems to be a lot better. I've had to put a few more turns on my FG knot because it seems to be a slicker line. It's a smoother line. But once I added some more turns, I'm getting much better FG knot strength. I haven't had any weird breaks so far. Um, haven't caught a lot of big fish, but like I said, that the smallmouth earlier this week, it was probably, I'm guessing it was only 3 pounds, but um, it was good fish. It was one of those where like you feel like it's going to pull the rod out of your hand when it makes that final run. It sort of caught me off guard a little bit. I'm enjoying it. At some point, I might go through this whole line test thing and figure out like, well, am I giving up distance or something? But so far, it doesn't seem like I am. The only line that I really feel like I could tell that I was getting more distance. There's been a handful that I get less, but was the Verivis Master Trout Area Limited, I think it was called, and it that was in a very small diameter in pound as well. It might have been 0.46 pound. That stuff just cast for miles, and so. But again, it's like $32 for one reel. So, uh, okay, Verivis Bass Braid is brand new. I'll have to take a look at it. Doo-doo. Leland's SOS. Well, that would be interesting, especially if it's a good budget. Okay, what else we got? This has been a good discussion. I'm sorry I keep looking down at I wish like the chat was right up here in front of me so we could see that, but so hopefully it's not too distracting to everybody. So I've heard a few other people in there. What's everybody's favorite reel they're running right now? Yeah, I know we've got. I know one person said the Conquest. It looks like somebody else is running a bunch of Calcuttas. There's Calcuttas modified in any way for bait finesse. Arc Gravity BFS. I do have. In fact, I got to reach out to him. It's not the Arc Gravity; it's the Hybo Arise Air. But I do have somebody who's going to loan me an Arise Air to do a little bit of testing with it here this month. So, um, as I understand, they're almost essentially the same reel. So, and I didn't catch it till right at the end. The Arc Gravity was on sale, I think, at Tackle Warehouse or somewhere. That was a great deal. It's like 112, I think it was on sale for. Hey, so I've been hearing a little bit more about that cormorant lately, and it sounds like the cormorant might address some of the issues, and they're not huge issues, but the flight feather, there was just a couple things that kind of hold it back from being one of the reels that I want to grab on a regular basis. And it sounds like the cormorant they did address that, and so it's um, after I've used the flight feather for a while, I think the cormorant at its price point, it sounds like it's actually a decent value, which is when in a world of $80 bait finesse reels, you're talking about a 220 some dollar reel. But it does seem like it really performs very well, and it's one of those that I may end up picking it up because with me being into the power BFS stuff, I do push my reels up to some of them up to 16, 18 grams every once in a while. And supposedly it's just engineered for that. I think the Corrado, the SLX, the Aldebaran, all of those handle those kind of weights. And I think the new Tatula 80 with the Gomexa spool, the Gomexa spool will be the question, but it's going to get pushed to that limit too, which is essentially just light, almost standard baitcaster stuff. But I'd rather not have to just grab a different rig just because I want to throw a 5/8 ounce, glide bait or something. So, bought the 23 Conquest. Yeah, okay. Bear King Zeus. Yeah, that's what I mean. Bear King Zeus. I'm pretty sure that's another one of the like sort of the Dark with Ultra family line. But it's another good little reel. Dude, the Corrado and the SLX will get it done. Wouldn't even worry about anything else if you don't need it for anything, or if you just itching to spend a little bit more money. Yeah, another Dark Wolf Ultra fan here. I again, part of it's sentimental for me because it was the reel that got me hooked. I bought it in the Alpha Air at the same time, and I'm glad I did because the Alpha Air I would have been like, oh, I'm going back to regular bait casters or something. But the Dark Wolf Ultra, it was it's still a joy to use. In fact, it's had. I've done zero mate. I feel bad saying this. Like I've fished that thing over 2 years, and it lays in the water. I mean, it really gets beat up, and the finish still looks good on it. I haven't done any maintenance on it. I need to do that sometime soon. But it's been a great reel. That was my big question mark when I bought it. Like for $72, I think when I paid for it. I actually had two of them. I did sell one of them. But I was like, okay, well, the question, will they last? And yeah, I mean, it's done great. Cash and Icon is definitely on my short list to try. It's kind of funny. I was trying to decide between a Cash and Icon and a Kistler Helium at the time when I bought the Kistler maybe a year plus, a year and a half ago. And ironically, then not too long after that, that's when I started Trey Kistler reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing a bait finesse line. Would you be interested in helping?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I love the helium." So maybe that was a little bit of like serendipity there, that because yeah, the Cash and Icon is definitely, seems like a power BFS rod. And when I was just looking for an American rod, to be honest with you. And then when I came across the Kistler, I'm like, and I'd actually emailed Trey, and actually I emailed Kistler, and Trey got back to me. He's like, I don't know if that'd be the perfect bait finesse rod, but it sounds like you know what you want to do with it. So we're happy to, let you give it a try. Um, so anyway, Conquest XG HG. Uh, Good answer, Jim. Yeah, probably should have bought the HG, so I'll just buy another one. Sear Castex. Okay, yeah, Sear. Was it the Sear Mansory? I think people were talking about that at one point. It was pretty good. Yeah, so Feather, I think it's Feather. I don't know if it's Feather. So the Mavlos plume, I keep going back the to the flight feather, sort of like the slightly less expensive version of the cormorant. I keep going back to putting it on the plume, and they do work very well together. I've tried a couple other reels. I think I had the Pure Lure on there at one point. I had the Doviello on the plume as well. And it's kind of funny. Like I probably half of my fishing trips never make it into videos at this point, but one of these days I'll have an editor or something where I can just get the stuff out. But I keep going back to putting that flight feather on the plume because they are very well suited. The plume is, I think they even say like don't throw lures over 12 grams on it. And so just throwing very light stuff up to like 5 or 6 grams, it's been a great match. And they're both sort of, a little ostentatious in their own way, design wise. So that way they kind of work for me as well. Okay, cool. Just, you've been commenting so much. I want to make sure I got your name right there. So yeah, there's, when you start talking about like BFS spools for, just odd reels, there are people who will do custom spools for you. I had looked at one for, there's going to be a shallow spool for the uh, SLX DCXT 70. But here was the deal: like it was going to run, and it was out of Japan. It was going to run like $240, and I'm like, okay, well, that just made this a $500+ reel. I don't, you know, it's not going to lose the weight that much. So there are guys, if you start looking around, you can find somebody to custom make you one. And it's just how bad do you want it? Um, and you may be able to get to, some of these places like, AMO or Gomexis. It may be one of those things where if you could get an order together and like say you're going to order at least 50, or they might be able to even give you a number. Like how many would you have to order for them to make them for you, and at what price? So that could be something to consider if you get into like an owners group, or even some of the bait finesse groups. Like, hey, but you probably need to start the conversation with them first to find who's willing to do that at a minimum quantity. Cash and Icon Corrado BFS. That sounds like a fantastic combo. Okay. Okay. So what else we got? Oh wait, here's another comment. So, a couple times a year, I also do these little planning videos where I'm like, hey, here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm thinking to do. We got 16 guys, maybe gals as well, that have been on here. Although we just lost 3. Uh-oh. They sense that I'm asking a question. Hey, so if what kind of videos would you like to see? I mean, are you just happy with what's going on, or are there some different types of things? I'm always looking for ideas. I have a list of probably 100 and I don't know 145 videos that I want to make this year. I'm not going to get them all made, but I challenge myself every year, and I've sort of laid them out by schedule. And I got a good bit of the ones in January made. February I failed a little bit, and March I might be okay. And that doesn't count fishing trips. So just to I set these high targets to try to make a ton of content, and it's just what can I get done? But what kind of content you guys want to see? What is it that I'm not like? What are the things that you'd like to see my take on, or something like that? Best catches of 23. Yeah, I've thought about that. So we'll travel to fish. There's an easier way for me to make those, but I just have to remember to do it throughout the year. And it's like when I have a good catch, if I drop it into a specific folder, then I have them all ready to go. But I don't do that. If you watch my videos, I forget stuff all the time. Today I was out and I forgot my landing net, and I was in a tough situation. Either fortunately or unfortunately, I only caught one fish, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But my memory is not always the sharpest. I think I'm always too far down the road, and I forget a lot of the stuff in the here and now. So yeah, best catches would be good. That just, man, it takes a lot. Discount code. Hey, thanks, Feather. I appreciate that. Videos of different lures you're trying. Yeah, I mean, I try to. This is one of the things I struggle with, because it, very rarely do I hit the water. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try the Nico Helgermite, or I'm going to try a tube, or I'm going to throw a spinner bait, and that's what I catch fish on, right? It's like it's this process, and so part of what I try to do is I try to share the thought process of like, okay, well, this didn't work, so I'm going to try this. Well, okay, that didn't work, so I'm going to try this. That didn't work, so I'm going to try this. And it seems like it works okay. I don't normally have people dropping off at those points, but I also don't want to get boring, like, and so I think today's video will become a video, even though I only caught one fish. But it was partly because I was working through this process of trying to figure out what they would hit. So is that the kind of stuff you're talking about, or do you want more in depth of like underwater footage? And I shouldn't even say this because I've thought about it, but like underwater footage and sound and all this other stuff about the details of a specific lure. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll travel. Yeah, I can see people are starting to drop off. We've been on this an hour, so uh, I'll do what I can on a discount code. Let me talk to Trey probably after the Bassmaster Classic, to be honest with you, because Kistler um, is a significant sponsor of the Bassmaster Classic this year. Um, but I will tell you, so there's still a handful of people on here, but people will watch the replay. This is the 25th anniversary for Trey starting his own company. Now he's been building rods for longer than that, but it's 25 years since he launched Kistler Rods. And so keep an eye out for some good sales. There should be some coming throughout the year. And I don't know if it's going to happen right around the Bassmaster Classic, or if it's going to be later in the year. But he's been doing some different little things that are more in person. But I'm expecting you'll probably see some good sales coming up. So just a heads up. Will you do your favorite BFS tackles? Yeah, I need to do that. That's a good one. Do. Yeah, I'll add that to my list. That's a great suggestion. So thank you. Actually, your username is not showing up, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay. One of the things I am just along that my favorite stuff. I am starting to work on a blog post at aaronhunt.net on sort of like the top sort of like an AliExpress bait finesse 101. So hopefully that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. But basically just going through reels, rods, line, lures, just to try to gather all that into one place. And obviously it's not going to be everything, but it's just try to pull sort of that beginner's bait finesse on AliExpress together. So that'll be one thing. Micro A rig. So I have thrown a micro egg A rig a couple times. Um, there's a guy on, yeah. If you've got something else, I'd happy to try it. I don't think his is under 3 grams though. So I was throwing it on a power. Um, oh, man, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he Zoe fishes on Instagram. So Zoe sent Ethan over at Mule Fishing, a few of them, and Ethan and I were talking at the time. He's like, "Hey, this is the kind of stuff that you would throw." He's like, "And I know you've talked about wanting to do this," so he sent me one of them, and I've thrown it a couple times, but I haven't managed to catch any fish on them yet. The And what I was throwing was just small. I don't remember which swim baits I put on it, but it was coming in closer to like 10 grams. So, man, if you got a 3 gram, I'd love to see a micro A rig. So. Hey, honestly, so I was asked, who am I picking for the classic? I don't keep up with the professional tour as much right now, and honestly, there's this current fracture between the two different groups has me, I don't always know who's in and who's out of different events. Um, so I've enjoyed. I will say this: I've enjoyed the format that Major League Fishing came up with. With it's not, it's almost like catch, photo, release, right? They catch it, they weigh it, they release them, instead of being the 5 bass limit, and they're holding the fish, and that does very little damage to the fish long term or the fishery. There's been plenty of studies that show that like the impact of that is somewhere around like 4%, even on some of the busiest lakes. So it's not that big of a deal. But I enjoy the way they're able to tell a little bit more compelling story by letting you see the back and forth live instead of this speculation about who has the fish and who doesn't. So I do record all of the Major League Fishing stuff that comes on TV, and I tend to I may not watch it 100% closely, um, but so I kind of like the guys in Major League Fishing, but now they're even changing the format there, and people are shifting all around. So this year, I haven't been able to spend the time to figure out who's on what tour. So um, I honestly, I hope somebody new wins the classic. How about that? Yeah, I hear you on Digitaka with more rods, man. When they do get them, they seem to go very fast. The good news is with Digitaka, and maybe you can do this other places, but Digitaka's works very well. Is if you create an account, you can set a reminder. Now, keep in mind though that I don't know about the Huntsman's rods, but like the Yamaga Blue Current 53. Like I waited for that for quite a while. And when I got the notification, they only had a couple. Within a few days, they were all gone. So, but you can set reminders on Digitaka, and when they get something in stock, you'll get an email about it. And so that's pretty cool. It's usually like at 1 or 2 in the morning, just because of the time difference. But um, I've picked up a handful of things that way. The Calcutta Conquest BFS, when I picked that up, that's how I got it. So just I got the email, and I ordered it. Yeah, the plume on the Gecko Bejan should be a good pairing. I I kind of feel like, and I got my plume for free. Mavlo sent it to me. They love the videos that I've done on the delicacy, um, and I've chatted with them a little bit about it. I kind of feel like the guide spacing might be off a little bit, and I'm holding off. Um, I wish I could just always go out and catch a big fish, and something like 16 to 18 inches or larger to really stress the rods, when I'm trying them out. Because to me, that's sort of like the final thing. Like it's great if I'm going out and I'm catching 9 or 10 inch trout, or 4 inch, 6 inch bluegill. Just about any rod can handle that. But I think if a rod is designed well enough, it should be able to land that unexpected big catch, even if you're not going after it. And the biggest fish I've ever hooked in my life, at least in my adult life, I lost largely because of a rod design, and that happened literally weeks before we started. When I started the conversations with Kistler, and so that's why I said, I'm like, well, here's some of the things that I want to make sure that we can do with this if we're going to do it. Like if I get into a big snook or a tarpon, like I at least want to have a chance. Like I don't want the rod to defeat me before I even get a chance to try to play the fish. Um, and so it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds like part of the plan then. So that's what I'm holding off with on the plume is like I feel like maybe the guide spacing is not adequate if I get into a big, like say 16, 18 inch trout that's been established for a little while, and so it's going to be able to put some good runs on in the current. It's not just a hatchery fish that is still trying to figure out how to survive in the wild. Maybe it's been there for 6 months or something, or you know 18-inch plus largemouth, 16-inch plus smallmouth. I want to get a fish of that class on it before I sort of do the final review. So but other than that, I think the accuracy has been good. Sensitivity is good enough for the price. You can't expect elite sensitivity on a rod that would cost $90. So, um, yeah, it's good for what it is. It's a different design. I have had no complaints of the grip and all that stuff. So I'm sort of doing a mini review right here because a lot of people have talked about it. So it's a decent rod for sure. And like I said, I don't like to do a review of something when I haven't pushed it hard enough, and that's why some of my reviews take forever to get out because I haven't had the right haven't chose that rod on the right day to get it on the right fish, to be able to finish the review, if that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I think the plume with crappie would be great. The guides are a little bit bigger, so that I can't remember I keep looking around like it's still sitting over there across the room, but it's out in the garage. The I think even the top the tip guide, I think it's larger than a lot of micro BFS guides anyway. So the thing that I always think about with crappie is that um, I typically associate wanting to be able to float fish when I want to be able to crappie fish. And so there's a lot of bait finesse rods that the guides are too tight to be able to let the the sort of the slip knot fall back through there. So that's where I kind of have a little bit of the problem with trying to use bait finesse in general for crappie fishing. Now just throw in road runners and other jigs, but to try to do that float fishing, if I was going to do that, I'd probably still grab my spinning rod right now. But that's just me. So okay. Hey, thanks, Feather. I see that. Thanks for telling me because if any of you guys have ever messaged me on Instagram, you'll know that like I'm horrible at I'm a YouTube guy for the most part. And so the other stuff I do just I try to keep them going. But I see the message here. So awesome. Appreciate it. I will check that out. Okay, what else we got? And we got any other last things? We've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes, which is a fantastic test. Um, has has the quality been good? I see a lot of thumbs up, so that's probably been good. And a lot of people seem like they've stayed on. So it seems like the stream quality has been good. The audio quality has been okay. You've been able to hear me okay. Before we wrap up, if anybody can leave, okay, I see a thumbs up there. That's good. Thank you, Randall. You might have been the guy who gave me the first thumbs up too. So you've been here the whole time. Actually, Feather was the first one in. So thank you guys. Old 18, yeah. Also, I talked about the Cashin and the Kistler. Old 18 was also right there in that decision making. And so eventually I want to try all of the good stuff, but it's just, there's only so much money right now. And honestly, I get to the point where I made that list. I'm like, there are like 169 videos about products and gear that I already have that I should make before I buy anything else. Right. And so, I've actually kicked around like I could do an entire year challenge. And we might do this maybe the first year that like the channel makes enough that I don't have to worry about anything else. Like it's paying all of its expenses and the trips that I want to take. But maybe we'll do a challenge where it's like I'm buying no lures, right? And I'm going to put all the ones that I have on the wall behind me. And if I don't catch a fish on the lure that's hanging there on January 1st, then January of the following year, I'm giving it away. Right. And so it'll be a big giveaway. So that's a video idea that I have because I have so much stuff. That's crazy. Hey, thanks, Jim. Yeah, it does help. So I don't know if Zoe sells those micro A rigs or not, but if you check out Zoe Fishes, and I'm gonna, yeah, his name's Enzo. Let the camera focus here. Come on, camera. There we go. So that's the guy who made the little one that I'm using. It's held up great. I've had no issues with it. I just haven't caught any fish. A couple of the tournament guys around here, they've told me that they find that A rigs work on one or two lakes around here because we just don't have many shad or like schooling fish, I guess. So there's one or two lakes that they work on, and in the rivers they tend to work very well. So I haven't thrown it down on specifically on the Allegheny or the Mon River or the Ohio. So I'm going to try to do that this year. But that's been their tips. The guys that fish for money and stuff that I run into every once in a while and just chat with when we're out. Uh, they're like, that this the one guy's like, I've never heard of anybody catching a fish on an A rig on this lake, and that was one of the places I was throwing it. I'm like, well, that's not good. He's like, hey, but maybe you'll be the first. And he was the one that sort of gave me some tips on where to throw it. So it seems to be good. Did I miss any other questions? Excellent show quality, all good. Thanks for going. Thanks for get to know. Stream looks good. Hit the thumbs up. Thank you guys. Thanks. Hey, thanks. Honestly, that's part of what I wanted to do. This has been on my list. You invite some wait a minute, some of on the lives to show our BFS setups. Well, that's a good idea. Might be able to do that. The Yeah, let's we'll think about that for sure. Um, yeah, the next one is going to be at the end of March. It'll be the 5,000 subscriber big giveaway, and then we'll figure out how to play around with a different format and do some different things because I would like to get to know some of you better as well. Obviously, some of the names I recognize just because they've been followers for a long time. They comment very frequently on the other stuff, but I appreciate all you guys and I'm thrilled with what 16, 20. I don't know how many people total, but I think we peaked at like 18 or 19. I'm thrilled with you guys hanging out with me on a Friday night. So thank you or a Friday or Saturday morning for some of you guys. Appreciate you give me a little bit of your time, but we're going to wrap it up now. I appreciate all you guys because this channel started just as a way for me to document my journey into bait finesse. I'd made a few videos before, but it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to sort of I want to go back and see how I felt and the things that I was dealing with years down the road. That's why I started this. And then literally within like 4 or 5 weeks, people started following along. So the fact that now I'm focused on, hey, this is sort of like the retirement gig that's going to pay for hopefully my fishing travel like that. That's really the goal at this point. And then that opens up the possibility to do some of these things like meet some of you guys in person. Like that's what I absolutely love. That's so um so I, right now I think I'll definitely hit West Virginia a few times just because that's where I grew up and I have family there. We're going to be in Tennessee in May. I'm going to be Hatteras Island in June. So maybe we'll do a surf fishing video or something. A couple other guys that I'm going to be down there with are big into surf fishing, but I'm going to see if I can do a bait finesse video or two while I'm down on Hatteras Island in June. Um, July, maybe Montana. And so I'd love to do some trout fishing in Montana. And so that's the only real travel that I have scheduled so far this year. What part of Tennessee? So it's going to be like Maryville, Tennessee, Maryville, Townsend. So right outside of Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. I have family down there as well, but we're staying. There's a river there called the Little River. You may know it, and I always went swimming in it as a kid at a place called the Y, and it just makes sense that there are good trout in it because it's cold year round. And so I want to try to get into the upper stretches of the Little River above the Y, and hopefully get into some brown trout. And then in the lower stretches, I want to catch some smallmouth. So that's what I'm hoping to do. 2 trips on like a 4-day trip down there. Oh, okay. Yeah, honestly, I figured from your username you were like Louisiana or something. You remind me of some of my guys down there. Uh, Guy that I used to know fairly well. His name was Lloyd. He ran Zam Swamp Tours down in Thibodaux, Louisiana, I think. So uh, fantastic fishing down there with those guys. Okay, starting to lag here. I wonder if that's me or if that's you. Ooh, Swanee bass. That would be awesome. Okay, very good. Hey guys, thanks everybody for joining me. This has been a fun conversation, and like I said, hopefully me looking down and reading. I'm maybe I'll see you get the iPad up here or something for the live. I'll see if I can come up with something. So anyway, thanks guys. Love you guys all. It's been fantastic, and it's been a great chat. So thanks. Hey, go out, catch some fish this weekend. Hopefully, I don't normally fish the weekends, but I bet most of you guys do. So get out there and get going.